Welcome back to your news bulletin. We start from Pakistan, where the National Coordination Committee has decided to extend the countrywide lockdown for 2 more weeks amid a surge in coronavirus cases. But industries related to daily use items, edibles and medicines are exempted from the lockdown. It also decided to gradually resume international flights from 4th April, but said passengers will be quarantined until they test negative for the virus. However, domestic flights will remain suspended. Speaking at the meeting, Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa said all measures are being taken to ensure public safety. He said no segment of society can be left at the mercy of the coronavirus. There are over 2,000 coronavirus cases in Pakistan, with 26 deaths and 82 recoveries. In the UK, the death toll from the novel coronavirus has jumped to over 2,300 after it reported a record 563 more deaths in a day. The number of confirmed cases around the world is now over 870,000, with more than 43,000 deaths, while over 184,000 people have recovered. It's been nearly 4 months since first coronavirus case emerged, but countries across the globe are still struggling to tackle it. The total number of deaths across Europe has gone beyond 30,000. More than 9,000 people have died in Spain, which is second only to Italy in fatalities caused by the virus. Confirmed cases in the country have passed 100,000, but numbers show the infection rate continues to fall. The US has reported a record 865 people have died, taking its tally to over 4,000. There are fears that as many as 200,000 people could die there. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the pandemic is the world's biggest challenge since World War II. For more on this, we are joined by Claus Urgens, a journalist from London. Now, the UK has suffered the highest number of COVID-19 related deaths in a single day. Has the curve reached its peak in the country, or should people expect things to get worse?
It is a very tough question. May I come back to the original viewpoint the British government had? And I am not a doctor. I see it as a political analyst, as a citizen, as a journalist, same like you. Now, the viewpoint in the United Kingdom was initially that we should wait until it is almost peaking to basically lock down society, but not to do it 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before. It would not have too much effect. Then the British government changed its viewpoint and said we have to react very, very fast to stop the spread. Now, I'm just looking onto my screen, and we have, as of 5 p.m. on the 31st of March, we had 2,352, unfortunately, citizens who have died and 29,474 confirmed positive. Now, the question here is, did the British government do anything wrong? I would not say so. It is impossible to blame anyone. Someone did it earlier, like in Italy. Someone did it later. This is a pandemic. No one ever thought it would happen. Governments must react, first of all, in line with their laws, and secondly, in line with society. Thirdly, how to stop the spread of this killer disease as effectively as possible. Now, unfortunately, from what I heard, and this is not off the record, this is on the record, Michael Gove gave a press conference only some hours ago and yesterday, and he said, unfortunately, we haven't seen the worst as of yet. So please stay home unless you have to go out. Of course you can go out, and within your vicinity, you need some fresh air. Go for essential shopping. But the point is not that this is a police state viewpoint. The point is you might infect someone else. You might get infected. Let's do this all together for another 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it might just, the curve might be flattening. But from what I hear and what I see, as I've said, I am not a doctor. I am just a political analyst and journalist. Unfortunately, I believe the curve has not as of yet flattened in the United Kingdom.
The UK government said that we have to react fast. However, against Britain now has 3 times as many deaths as Germany, despite only half as many tests. Is the government working to ramp up testing?
I heard so, that the number of tests will be dramatically ramped up, as you say. I heard that in Germany it could be done up to 70,000 per day. Now, we must be honest, there are different approaches to healthcare systems as well. I'm not saying that the British system is inferior or superior via the NHS. The NHS is simply fantastic. It is simply funded differently. But now the number of tests in the UK should go up dramatically, exponentially in line with the number of infected cases. And then I hope that this curve can be flattened as quickly as possible. The number is not sufficient as we speak. No, I'm very, very frank about this. Not at all.
Thank you, Klaus Ergens, for talking to Indus News. Now from India, doctors have been compelled to use raincoats and sunglasses to fight the coronavirus. Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the government was trying to get protective gear in bulk domestically and from South Korea and China. Shortages of protective health gear have exposed the poor health infrastructure of the country ahead of an expected surge in cases. Over a dozen doctors battling the outbreak said they were susceptible to becoming carriers of the disease without proper gear. According to an estimate, over 100,000 people could be infected by mid-May, putting India's underfunded health system under severe strain. Doctors in North Bengal Medical College and Hospital in the eastern city of Siliguri were given plastic raincoats to examine patients.
When we went today, at last, after we gave huge pressure, he gave us a letter he sent to the ward, one packet. He told it is in place of PPE, there was a raincoat. Okay, raincoat, and with that the scientific goggles, no scientific goggles, they provided a sunglass, black colored sunglass.
In occupied Kashmir, political parties have rejected a new domicile rule introduced by New Delhi in a clear attempt to change the demography of the region. According to the notification, a person residing in the region for at least 15 years will now be eligible to be a permanent resident of occupied Kashmir. The new rule also grants domicile to those who have studied in Kashmir for a period of 7 years. Prior to India's 5th August move, the Kashmir Assembly was empowered to define a resident of the region. In a tweet, former Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti said, the new order reflects New Delhi's paranoid mindset. Earlier, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi informed EU's Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell on the situation in Kashmir. Qureshi said the European Union should raise voice for the release of detainees in Kashmir. He went on to say that India must lift its curfew in the region to contain the coronavirus pandemic. Amnesty International has asked the Indian government not to abuse its powers in occupied Kashmir. The valley has been reeling under New Delhi's curfew and communications blackout for the last 241 days. In a tweet, the rights body said New Delhi must exercise restraint in the occupied valley during the ongoing global health crisis. It said the outbreak in the region cannot be defeated without the solidarity of its people. Meanwhile, Kashmiri miners in the occupied territory have joined calls to end the cruel curfew. A 5th grade Kashmiri student asked Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to end the internet blockade in the valley. The student said she has not attended her school since 5th August due to the clampdown imposed by the Modi government. In another news, in Kabul, the Afghan government and the Taliban have held the first round of talks on a prisoner exchange process pivotal to kickstarting intra-Afghan talks. Under the Doha peace deal, both sides are required to release almost 6,000 prisoners. In a series of tweets, the Afghan National Security Council said the talks will continue between the two sides. Earlier, a three-member Taliban team arrived in Kabul to monitor the government's release of imprisoned militants. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has termed the recent development good news. Meanwhile, Pakistan has welcomed the formation of a negotiating team for talks with the Taliban. In a statement, the Foreign Office said it is an important step towards peace in Afghanistan. More from Afghanistan. 8 people have been killed after a vehicle was struck with a roadside bomb in southern Helmand province. Police said 2 others were wounded in the blast in Nehre-Saraj district of the province. They said those dead belonged to the same family. No group has claimed responsibility yet. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says the U.S. has missed a historic opportunity to lift sanctions on Tehran during the coronavirus outbreak. In a cabinet meeting, Rouhani said the sanctions have failed to hamper Iran's efforts to fight the pandemic. Rouhani said it was a great opportunity for Americans to apologize and to lift unjust sanctions on Iran. He said the COVID-19 crisis is a huge test for Iran, which the country has passed successfully. The president hailed doctors, paramedical staff, and security forces for their role in fight against the virus. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo raised the possibility of easing sanctions on Iran to help fight the coronavirus. Speaking to media, Pompeo said the Trump administration evaluates its policies on a constant basis. He said U.S. sanctions do not apply to medical and other humanitarian goods. Iran has slammed U.S. deployment of Patriot air missile defense system in Iraq, saying Washington is leading Middle East to disaster. Washington is in talks with Baghdad about the proposed deployment. The Patriot is Washington's principal anti-missile system. In a statement, the Foreign Office said the defense system's deployment deifies Iraq's government and people. The ministry said U.S. forces should respect the wishes of the Iraqi people and government and leave the country. The office has called for a halt to warmongering by Washington during the coronavirus outbreak. It said U.S. military activities in the region could lead it to instability and disaster in the Middle East region. Earlier, Iraq's Prime Minister Adel Abdel Mahdi warned against any offensive military action without the approval of the Iraqi government. 21 people have been killed in floods caused by heavy rainfall in Iran as the country struggles to contain the coronavirus. Emergency Services spokesperson Mushtaba Khaledi said 22 people were injured while 1 remains missing. Khaledi said most of the casualties took place in the southern or central provinces. He said 11 people died in Fars province, 3 each in Hormozgan and Qom, 2 in the Sistan and Balochistan province, and 1 each in Bushehr and Khuzestan. The spokesperson said 1 person is reported missing in Hormozgan on the Gulf Coast. Last week's floods killed 12 people, and Khaledi warned of more heavy rain to come. In March and April last year, heavy rainfall and flooding killed at least 76 people in the country. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. As the world battles against the novel coronavirus pandemic, the outbreak continues to spread across the Middle East. The number of infections have reached to thousands in Saudi Arabia and Israel. Fears are increasing for the war torn Iraq, where over 600 cases have been reported with 50 deaths, while Syria has reported 10 infections. In financially stricken Jordan, 5 people have succumbed to the often deadly virus, while over 200 cases have been confirmed. Earlier on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia urged Muslims to put their Hajj pilgrimage plans on hold after banning entry to twin cities of Makkah and Medina. Meanwhile, S&P Global Ratings said the fallout from the pandemic and tumbling oil prices threaten the earnings of insurers in the Gulf region. More from the Middle East. Turkey says it will have to take additional measures if the coronavirus outbreak grows and people do not abide by a voluntary quarantine. Speaking in a televised video conference, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey's greatest advantage in fighting the outbreak is its strong healthcare infrastructure. He called on the public to stay at home until further notice and maintain social distancing in a bid to stem the virus spread. He said the goal is to ensure that Turkey leaves this troubling period behind with minimal losses. Erdogan has stopped short of announcing a full lockdown across Turkey, mainly for economic reasons, but he has faced growing pressure to do so after coronavirus cases surged to more than 13,000 in just 3 weeks, with 214 deaths. NATO Secretary General has lauded Turkey for sending medical aid to Italy and Spain, the two European countries worst hit by the coronavirus. In a tweet, Jens Stoltenberg said, Turkey's initiative is NATO solidarity in action. He said he was proud to see NATO allies supporting each other through a joint disaster relief center. The Italian and Spanish delegation in NATO also thanked Ankara. Earlier, a Turkish military aircraft carrying medical aid departed from the capital, Ankara, for Italy and Spain. UN agencies and World Trade Organizations have called on the global community to protect international food supply during the COVID-19 pandemic. The heads of the WTO and UN Food and Health agencies warned against possible shortages and price spikes. They said logistical issues faced by agricultural and food industry workers could increase food wastage. They added, uncertainty about food availability can spark a wave of export restrictions, creating a shortage on the global market. In a joint statement, they said it must be ensured that the response to the crisis does not create unwarranted shortages of essential items and exacerbate hunger and malnutrition. The Kremlin says Russian leader Vladimir Putin has decided to handle his duties remotely. The step has been taken after the head of the country's main coronavirus hospital tested positive following a meeting with the president. Last Tuesday, Putin donned a bright yellow hazmat suit for the visit to the hospital. He was also seen talking to the chief of the hospital without any protective gear. But the Kremlin said there is no reason for concern about the president's health. Almost 70% of Russia's 147 million population has been ordered into strict confinement over the pandemic. Russia has so far registered 2,777 cases of the coronavirus and 24 deaths, mostly in Moscow. Venezuela has rejected the U.S. call to establish a transitional government to hold fresh elections. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arrizia said the U.S. is trying to interfere in his country's internal affairs. Arrizia said Venezuela is an independent and democratic country and it will not accept interference from a foreign government. Meanwhile, Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido has supported Washington's offer to step aside to allow the formation of an interim government. Guaido said the government should agree with the proposal as it ends the crushing U.S. sanctions.
Hoy tenemos el respaldo del mundo, una propuesta que hicimos hace meses.
Today, it's clear in the US and our proposal that advancing to a national emergency government can lift the sanctions. That shouldn't be an excuse for the dictatorship. It shouldn't be an excuse to not advance and attend to our people. Our people deserve this moment. A moment for all Venezuelans, a moment to continue advancing, and it just won't be the United States. There will be many countries that go along with this emergency national government proposal to form a state council where responsibilities will be delegated to finally have truly free elections.
Nuestra gente es nuestra gente la que merece este momento.
Hundreds of Brazilians held a socially distanced protest in Rio de Janeiro against President Jair Bolsonaro's handling of coronavirus pandemic. Angry citizens banged on pots and pans from their houses while calling for Bolsonaro's resignation. Far-right populist Bolsonaro has been at odds with his cabinet and state governors over strict quarantine measures. Brazil's Health Minister Luiz Henrique Mandetta has opposed Bolsonaro over social distancing measures to curb the virus. Meanwhile, Brazil's Economy Minister Paulo Guedes said the government needs to strike a balance between isolation policies and protecting the economy. These comments underline the divisions at the top as Bolsonaro argued hunger is just as big a threat as the coronavirus itself.
Like the Director General of the World Health Organization said, every individual is important. At the same time, we should stop the destruction of jobs. The collateral damage of the measures to fight the coronavirus cannot be worse than the very illness. My obligation as president goes beyond the next few months.
Lockdowns to contain the coronavirus have left the world's most economically vulnerable citizens without a source of income. In Brazil, sanitation workers are struggling to make ends meet after the virus made its way to the country's shores. More in this report.
Until recently, this plant has produced 8,000 tons of recyclable material, generating employment for some of Rio de Janeiro's poorest citizens. But the quarantine measures have forced the plant to shut down operations. The sudden change has left most employees unable to feed their families.
Our cooperative receives trash weekly. This week, the staff has nothing left, no money to buy their food and maintain their expenses. Have fun with the collection live today.
One sanitation worker says her fridge has been empty since Brazil started implementing quarantine measures.
It is very difficult right now. When I was working, at the end of the week, I was doing okay. My refrigerator was not full, but it was also not lacking. But now, it is like this.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has repeatedly called for the reopening of the country's economy, saying a recession would be more harmful than the coronavirus. But experts say lifting quarantine measures too early could create a need for an even stricter lockdown.
In another news, UK's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle have formally begun their new lives today after stepping down as senior members of the royal family. The couple has relinquished their Royal Highness titles and will no longer use the Sussex royal label. The couple will also no longer carry out duties on behalf of Queen Elizabeth II and has given up its office within the monarchy in Britain. But they will continue to be known as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry remains sixth in line to the throne with no change in the line of succession. The couple has already relocated to California after announcing their intention to quit royal life in January. US-based hospitality group Marriott has reported a second major data breach to hit the hotel chain in less than 2 years. Marriott said it has informed over 5 million guests worldwide who may have been affected by the breach. The company said the leaked information included the names, addresses, and phone numbers of the customers. Marriott said credit card information, passport numbers, or driving license information was not accessed in the breach. In November 2018, Marriott announced a massive data breach where hackers accessed the private information of over 380 million guests. Chad says it has deployed its soldiers to Niger and Nigeria in a counteroffensive against the Boko Haram militant group. Defense Minister Mohammed Abali Salah said Operation Bouma's Wrath was launched after the militant group killed 98 Chadian soldiers last week. Salah said as part of the operation, 5 companies of soldiers have been deployed to Niger and Nigeria with the approval of these countries. He said the purpose is to clear the area around Lake Chad from terror. On 23rd March, Boko Haram militants attacked a military base in Boma in Lac Province. Chad's government declared Lac Province a war zone on Friday. Boko Haram launched a bloody insurgency in northeastern Nigeria in 2009. Later, it spread its atrocities to neighboring Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. In the Central African Republic, 3 civil wars have left thousands of people handicapped or dealing with poor mental health. But many physically disabled locals have found ways to stay fit and active. One of the most popular forms of exercise is wheelchair basketball. Details in this report.
Life with a disability is difficult anywhere, but it's particularly hard in one of the world's poorest countries. But in the Central African Republic, amputees have found solace in playing wheelchair basketball. Players swing into action using tricks to distract opponents, their wheelchair tires hissing across the court. Most dedicated basketball players have to travel several kilometers under the scorching sun every day.
When you are disabled, you tend to be unable to do anything. But through sport, we can get out of this handicap. We value ourselves like others. Why not go to the Olympic Games like others, like the able-bodied? Why not do great things in sport and even have a job through sport? So it gives us our dignity. It gives us hope.
Coping with prostheses isn't easy either. Amputees have to go through hard training to learn how to walk, find a seat in the bus, or how to climb stairs.
I was amputated because of a bullet, and I was walking on crutches. Now with the prosthesis, I can work with my own hands, take care of my children, and be active in life.
But there are other injuries that aren't as visible as an amputation. The Central African Republic has been through 3 civil wars, which has left countless people suffering from mental health issues. Now, officials are working to build a new center to offer psychological help for people.
Of all the cases we get here, 50% are traumatic cases that are related to the conflict. They come here, we take care of them, then we make them custom prostheses, then we deliver them. Then we do the re-education, how to walk, how the person can use his device.
The World Health Organization estimates that there are 30,000 people dealing with amputation or high stress levels because of conflict in the Central African Republic. But the National Association of Rehabilitation believes the actual figure is likely 3 times higher than the WHO's estimate.
We're taking a short break, but stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. In our top business story, the U.S. stocks fell sharply as Wall Street begins the second quarter on a sour note amid mounting concerns over the coronavirus outbreak. The markets also edged lower after U.S. private hiring plummeted by 27,000 in March. The drop in the shares of Boeing and American Express led the Dow Jones Industrial Average to trade lower. The S&P 500 index tumbled over a drop in the real estate, energy and financial stocks. Nasdaq Composite also traded over 2% lower. European markets are trading lower as global market sentiment continues to take a pummeling amid the coronavirus outbreak. London's FTSE 100 has slumped over 4% lower as banking sector stocks plunged between 3 and 7% after suspending dividend payments. CAC 40 in Paris is trading about 4% lower, while Frankfurt's DAX has plunged about 3.5%. In Asia, Nikkei 225 led the losses, closing over 4.5% lower. Seoul's Kospi lost about 4%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng traded over 2% lower. Shanghai Composite lost ground. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude oil prices slashed over 5%. Chinese telecom giant China Mobile has officially launched 5G commercial service in Hong Kong. Manufacturers have turned pessimistic for the first time in 7 years in the 3 months to March. This was revealed during the central bank's Tankin survey as the coronavirus pandemic pushed the economy closer to a recession. Non-manufacturer sentiment also worsened to levels not seen in 7 years as travel bans, event cancellations, and social distancing policies hurt consumption. The data underscores the challenge Prime Minister Shinzo Abe faces in stopping the pandemic, wiping out the benefits of his stimulus policies have brought to the economy. As per the survey, the headline index measuring big manufacturer sentiment worsened to -8 in March from 0 in December. It was the first time in 7 years the big manufacturers index turned negative. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.